Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. My name is Elivaras, Senior Player Moderator for League of Angels Fire Raiders. Welcome to Part 5 of Hero Spotlight, a series where we take a look at a certain hero, delve deep into their skills, figure out which crests, astral training lines, and runes should be focused on that hero, and which team compositions that hero works well in. Today, we are going to be taking a look at the hero that will be on your screen right here that I have just acquired, Aurora Blade. This is the new Paragon hero, an extremely strong hero, less focused on the DPS side, but more focused on the tankiness and support side. First off, I'd like to say I really like her art. I think it was very, very well done, much like Dragon Queen's. It seems got that kind of feel to it, and Dragon Queen's was done really well as well. But why don't we start by hopping into her skills? I've used her a few times, so I found I've used her a few times, so I know some of what her skills do and how they work. So let's hop into this first one, Aurora Slash. Aurora strikes a vertical column of enemies, damaging and stunning them while increasing her own damage reduction. So after she uses her ultimate, she will guarantee stun enemies in a line for 2 rounds and increase her damage reduction by 34.5%. Next, Aurora Blade transforms her Aurora into a shield that absorbs damage on frontline heroes. So cast a shield on frontline heroes for 2 rounds. She will do this on the first turn no matter what, assuming she's not stunned. Radiance, unleash a wave of azure light that reduces the attack and rage of the enemy's backline. She will do this on the second round, no matter what, unless she is stunned, of course. Reduces target's attack by 23.5%. for 2 rounds and reduce rage by 190, and this will climb a little bit more as it levels up, since I'm not max level yet. Divine Favor. The Favor of the Gods grants a large HP increase for the entire team and provides backline heroes with a shield that gives immunity to control effects. Something very interesting about this skill is that it is not an active ability. If you have her on your team, your backline will always have this shield, which is actually like amazing. First, everyone gets HP increase, and she gives backline heroes an immunity shield for 2 rounds. So that means they cannot be CC'd at all. So if you have her on your team, your backline cannot be CC'd. If your backline dies, it immediately transfers to your front line. It's actually really, really good skill. Really makes her such a good hero for support. And her Awaken ability, Aurora Blade's latent power awakens to greatly increase her stats. This increases her max HP by 12,500 and physical and magical defense by 1,250. So off to start, she has pretty decent base stats. Physical defense and magical defense are quite good. They're up there with Light Envoys, and you can gain massive increases with that through upgrading her. Obviously, I don't have her at the highest stars, unfortunately, since it would take me a lot of trophies to exchange for her, and I honestly don't think the amount of trophies I'd be spending to exchange to get her to like 4-star would be worth it compared to how many Nexus crystals and gold and stuff I could buy, which would allow me to get her up in Nexus and in runes and such. So I got her up very, very quickly. Maxed out, well, I got a lot on her Crest, a lot on her Nexus, and I'm getting close to maxing her Nexus, and maxed out her runes and rune seals. So, especially if you do that, she gets quite a lot of defense. And I think we're going to start with Crest like we did last time. So what Crest should you be using on Aurora Blade? So there's a few different ways you can use Aurora Blade. Firstly, you can use her as a DPS. I've seen a few posts of people using her as a DPS hero, and she is doing quite good damage, so they say. So this would mean you're going to be using her in the backline as a DPS hero. Her main DPS is going to be coming from her second or third skill called Radiance, where she strikes the backline and decreases their rage and attack by a certain percentage. And her ultimate, obviously, which is the line attack. Personally, I don't feel like I would use her. Personally, I wouldn't use her as a DPS. I think her defenses, especially in her runes, are way too strong to make her a DPS, but you can if you want. And in that case, I would probably run Flash with attack percent or Assault with attack percent. Flash because as a DPS, well, firstly, she has her ability that gives a shield to the front line, and she'll use this on the first turn. So you want to get the shield up as fast as possible if you have her as a DPS. So you're like, okay, flash, so get that shield up for your front line. And then you can usually, I guess you can cast your ult maybe a turn earlier or before some enemy heroes, which could be very useful as a DPS so that you can stun any backline heroes on their team who may have their ults up as well. So if there is a queue of ultimates that need to be shot out, if you have her at the highest agility, she will use hers and potentially stun an enemy hero who hasn't used theirs yet. And of course, you can always run Assault. Assault's never a bad option. This will just give her more flat attack power, which is obviously not a bad thing. Personally, though, I would use her as a tank. I didn't know why I was saying that. Actually, before I go into that, I'll talk about utility. You can use her as a general utility hero. So utility you more see on the Chinese servers, but that means you're not tuning her for DPS. Instead, you're tuning her to support your team, but as a utility, she'll be in the back line, usually. So this means, if you're in the front line, typically you'd want a Crest like Warden, because you want more defenses to stand up to enemy heroes that are hitting you. But if she's in the back line, she doesn't need Warden as much. So therefore, if you're going to use her as a utility, I would definitely run Flash, probably with something like defense and HP percentages, so that she'll get tankier, so that she won't die, and she'll offer tons of utility to your team, and you'll have her in the back line. Obviously, really you should only do this if you have other two really solid DPS heroes, let's say like Bamboo Fighter and like Shadowstalker, or maybe like Dragon Queen and Nightblade, or, you know, some really strong DPS that can carry your team. Because she's not going to be doing much DPS as utility. But personally, I would use her as a tank. And on a tank, as you can see here, you would have Warden with defense percent and potentially HP percent. I have both HP and defense percent. So usually I would always go defense percent just because she's got massive defensive stats. And therefore, because defense increases by a percentage of her stats, if her stats are way higher, she'll gain way more defense, and her defense stats are really high. Now, her HP is also increased by a lot in her stats, so it's really not that bad to run HP percent either. So you could run a mix, or just straight defense percent. I don't think it matters too much, but overall, you definitely want some defense percent in there to get her defense up, so that she'll be able to survive. So that's what I'm running, Warden with defense percent. And then you would go into her runes. So runes obviously depend on your crest and what you want to use her as. So if I go all the way down, we find Aurora Blade somewhere in the depths here. I probably skipped over her. There she is. Okay, so first, if you are running a DPS, you are going to place less priority on defensive stats, and therefore you're going to want agility as your first. So agility first, if you are running her as a DPS, and then probably resilience, magical defense, and physical defense on the next tier, and then probably HP on the last tier. So agility first, then these three, then HP. If you're running her as utility, agility first again, then these three, then HP, I feel, would still be fine. But if you're running her as a tank, I would probably prioritize the three defensive stats first, and then agility, and then HP. One thing, actually I'll talk about that later. But now let's go into astral training. So what astral training line should you use on Aurora Blade? So if you're running her, it's obviously going to vary depending on how you're running her. If you're running her as a DPS, you're going to want all lines with attack. So Ares doesn't have any DPS stats. So Leo has got 2, attack and hit. So you're going to want Leo first. And then Gemini and Cancer on the same tier. They both give attack. And this one gives resilience, and this one's give dodge. And usually I'll take those both over parry. I don't like parry as much as these two. But really, there's not much of a difference. So you could say Leo first, then Gemini / Taurus / Cancer on the next line, and then Ares last, because it gives 4 defensive stats, which are less useful in a DPS. So next, you can use her as a utility. So if you're using her as a utility, you're going to want some more focus on the defensive stats. So you're going to want Ares first because it gives 4 defensive stats. And then you're probably going to want Cancer / Gemini / Taurus. They really all give kind of the same thing. The only difference is Cancer gives dodge, Gemini gives resilience. Taurus gives parry, but overall I take dodge and resilience over parry. But definitely dodge first. Dodge first on someone who's looking for more defense. So Aries, and then I would take Cancer, and then I would take Taurus / Gemini, so both of these in the same tier, and then Leo last because it gives 2 offensive stats, which you don't use much in utility. However, that can go either way. As a utility, you'll also be using her stun, so maybe if her hit's lacking, you'll want this hit bonus, but I don't have / time to test her out. But really, it's not that huge of a deal. If you're worried about her not hitting, you can prioritize Leo more, but overall, Aries, then Cancer, then Gemini / Taurus, then Leo. So now, what if you want her as a tank? It's going to be very similar to utility. This first, Aries first, then Cancer / Gemini, Cancer, and then Gemini / Taurus, and then Leo. So Aries, then Cancer, then Gemini / Taurus, and then Leo. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about team composition. So Aurora Blade is really a good hero in the way that she can really fit into any team. She's not, maybe as a DPS you want to fit her more into a line damage team, but overall it's not hugely crucial what team you put her on. She'll work well on any team. She's an amazing tank. I'd probably use her as an off tank rather than a main tank. She's not tanky enough as a main tank in my opinion. Maybe if you're like top of your server, you can use her as a main tank, but personally I'd use her as an off tank, especially because if she gets locked down, she is not she's not as useful as she could be. She doesn't get she doesn't give you the DPS, she doesn't give you the stuns, she doesn't give you the enemy backline, rage and attack decrease, none of that stuff because she's stunned. So, and if you put her as a main tank, there's 2 enemy heroes that can hit her right across from her, so she's more likely to get stunned. Actually, okay. This is what we'll do. I got a better idea. There's a lot of testing. There's going to be a lot of cutting in this video because of all these failed arena battles. This is what we're going to do. We're going to put her in the back. So yes, I know she is tanky, but unfortunately she just can't stand up to Knight Sentinel. Light Envoy is way tankier and does a much better job of it. And you saw Light Envoys used her Chaos, and we did have Control Immune on Pyrona. So we do see Light Envoy getting very tanky there, and we do have massive damage reduction there. This is unfortunately probably not a double silence, which means we could get, oh, wow, the lucky Chaos. So we do see the double stun, and that's really what you need to happen. So now we do have Pyrona bringing out the damage, but really, oh man, this is bad news because they're just not killing. There we go. We finally have a hit, but we do have the unfortunate there and there. They have their 2 guys who are probably going to ult Knight Sentinel and Bamboo Fighter, but you can definitely see the value of Aurora Blade stun there, and Dragon Queen does get the finish on Bamboo Fighter, so we're finally getting the fight that we want to see. So it was definitely a good idea to move Aurora into the backline that time and have Astral Child in the bottom. We do see a triple Chaos on their team. If they had that triple Chaos, it would not have been as bad on my heroes because I have the Control Immune. Another stun coming out there. Their Light Envoy is going to be kind of annoying to deal with. Now be aware, Aurora Blade's stun immunity does not last for the whole game. I think it lasts for 2 turns. So the opening 2 turns, which is still really good because those are the turns that really count in deciding whether a battle goes well. So you're seeing Cupid's use here with the Chaos really helping. Light Envoy is really annoying to take down because she's super strong. 2-turn Chaos too, which is even better. Dragon Queen with the ult. So we can see in this battle, Aurora Blade is playing more of a utility purpose. So, you know, actually utility Aurora doesn't seem to be that bad. Just because there's a lot of Knight Sentinels, I'd use her in the front line if there weren't so many Knight Sentinels. Once I get another good DPS, I'll use her in the back. I'll use her in the front and then have my other good DPS in the back line. Because that's really my issue. Dragon Queen's really my only DPS. And that's what's the problem. Oh boy, Dragon Queen ult, please, 5 seconds. That was so close. Okay, anyways. So yeah, that shows you really the use of Aurora Blade, especially the utility of her stun and the control immunity in the back line. It's going to be a lot of cuts, probably. So apologies for that. So yeah, thank you all for watching. In conclusion, the composition is really used. Like, she's just that good. It doesn't matter what hero's used to with. She's always going to be useful, no matter if she's a utility, a tank, or a DPS. So yes, thank you all for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Cheers, guys.